Of all the dangers faced by sailors, none are more feared than a fire at sea. This may seem odd, being as they are surrounded by water, but the fact is, a ship's hull is designed to keep water out, not to allow it aboard. Besides that, combustible materials on board tend to burn very hot and very fast. Meanwhile, there is no escape except overboard, which is not usually a good alternative. Considering that the nation was on the verge of war in 1940, it is understandable that the Department of the Navy would make fire safety a priority aboard its ships. The irony is that the solution, asbestos, may ultimately have cost as many lives in the shipyards as were lost in combat. With so many called upon just to make the ultimate sacrifice for the country in combat, it is possible the Navy expected that patriotic shipyard workers would be willing to make the same sacrifice. The differences are, those who put on a uniform knew the risks they were taking, and death in combat is relatively quick and immediate. On 11 March of 1941, 10 months before Pearl Harbor, U.S. Navy Commander of Preventive Medicine, C.S. Stevenson, sent a memo entitled Asbestos to Rear Admiral Ross McIntyre. The memo stated, "We are not protecting these men as we should. I told the Assistant Secretary of the Navy that I had spoken to you, and you had indicated that President Roosevelt thought that informing the workers about the hazards might not be the best policy, due to the fact that it might cause disturbances in the labor element." Yet, the Navy continued to ignore physicians' warnings after the war, throughout the Korean conflict and Vietnam. Why? Money. It's pretty simple, really, says Charles A., a former shipyard worker who has testified in numerous asbestos trials. He says, "You are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to protect all the people that work in shipyards. It was a lot cheaper to let them work unprotected. The companies figured, sure, some of the workers will die, and fewer will sue us. It is still much cheaper than buying the protective gear." While a nation at war demands sacrifices of its citizens, there is a general consensus that at the very least, the Navy owed shipyard workers a full disclosure so that they could make up their own minds about the risks involved. It's not only shipyard workers. If you sailed on any ship built prior to the 1980s, whether it was a Navy cruiser, a freighter, or even on a cruise ship, chances are good that you have had some exposure to asbestos. Asbestos insulation was used throughout old turbine steamships, not only for pipes and other fittings as well as fireproof doors, but often between decks in order to muffle sounds. This is not to say that you will get mesothelioma from the 3-week cruise you went on 20 years ago. Not all who are exposed to asbestos will contract the disease. For reasons not fully understood, some persons are more susceptible than others, and in any event, it usually requires intense exposure in an enclosed space for many months or years to trigger the disease. Nonetheless, if you have been in a high-risk situation or occupation at any time during your past and have not yet had symptoms, it is especially important to be checked regularly, as mesothelioma, like most cancers, is most treatable in its early stages. If you have been affected, understand that the liable party in the eyes of the court will probably not be the shipyard, the cruise line, or even the Navy, but the manufacturer of the asbestos product. Therefore, it will be important for you to recall as many details about your employment as possible in order to help your attorney build a strong case. Thank you for watching. This video was produced by Asbestos.Net, a leading resource on all aspects of asbestos and mesothelioma. Our priority is to inform victims about the devastating effects of asbestos exposure, mesothelioma, asbestos cancer, asbestosis, and other asbestos-related diseases, and to advise them with a wealth of information. Individuals whose lives have been touched by mesothelioma have numerous questions and concerns. Their caregivers and family members also need accurate, reliable information. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestos cancer and need more information, we invite you to visit and explore the thousands of pages of oncologist-reviewed material on Asbestos.net,
to call our convenient toll-free number shown below and speak with a mesothelioma specialist, or to use the simple contact form found at Asbestos.Net to request a free copy of our informative books, custom inserts, and DVD. Asbestos.Net, information and help for patients and families.